my name's Diana Price, and I'm a forestry technician with our Natural Resources Division at the City of Minnetonka. And today I'm excited to share with you our 2022 tree sale species sneak preview. So today we're going to go over a few things. We're going to talk about some frequently asked questions. And then we're going to talk about how to order online, so exactly how to order your trees. And we're going to talk a little bit too about choosing the right tree and planting location. And last but not least, we'll jump into this tree species, so talking about the different tree features and benefits of the trees that we're offering this year. First, trees are limited in quantity, so we're only able to order as much as we're budgeted for. This year we're excited to offer 950 tree units, so we have some trios and duos available, so it'll be a little bit more than 950 trees, but that's how many we're offering for Minnetonka residents. The city orders the trees in the winter prior to the tree sale, so we've actually already ordered the trees that we'll be offering for pickup in September. We order these wholesale through some local nurseries. This is just the best way for us to get the best selection for you guys and being able to offer a diverse mix of tree species. Many of the trees offered sell out in the first couple days and weeks and sometimes hours of the tree sale. So if you really have your heart set on a specific tree, make sure you're getting in there and ordering early. The trees that we're selling are all container stock trees. So we offer number 10s, number 7s, number 5 containers. And those numbers correspond to the gallon size of the containers that we're offering. This picture here is showing an actual tree pickup event, and so the trees that you're ordering are going to look very similar to these ones here in those black plastic containers. The trees are only for Minnetonka residences and businesses, and we do this for a couple different reasons. One, to replace any diseased or risk trees that have been removed from the landscape, and also to increase the diversity of our community forest here in Minnetonka. You can order 2 trees per property. Residents with multiple properties may purchase 2 trees for up to 2 additional properties, so a total of 2 different orders. Homeowners associations and businesses may participate in the tree sale. However, this must be pre-approved through our forestry department ahead of time, so please contact us and you'll be ordering outside of our online sale if you represent a homeowners association or business. There are no refunds offered after the tree sale concludes. So that tree sale is usually open for about a month. And if you decide you want the tree past that tree sale, unfortunately we cannot offer a refund. And this is the same if a tree that you pick up, purchase and pick up dies, we cannot offer a refund or a replacement for that tree. So the sale is going to go live Monday, February 7th at 8 a.m. You'll be able to go to the website minnetonkamn.gov/tree sale at that date. Otherwise, you can link there through our city natural resources events and tree sale. We have a lot of information up there right now, so you can go ahead and take a look at that website and go over some questions that you may have that could be there. On the 7th, you're going to click Order Trees. Our online sale is hosted by Tree Trust, so this is going to redirect you to a page hosted by Tree Trust, and it's through Shopify. That's their shopping account online. You're going to sign in or create an account through Shopify. From there, you're going to look at the different tree species and descriptions, select your trees, put them in your shopping cart, and then check out using PayPal or with a credit card or debit card. Once you make your tree purchase, you'll get 2 emails. One will be the Tree Trust order confirmation saying that you've made your purchase, and last is a receipt of your trees. Some things to keep in mind. Please read the entire frequently asked questions guide that we have online before ordering. Also, quantities are limited, so make sure that you're ordering early, especially if you have a specific tree in mind that you really have your heart set on. We cannot take credit cards over the phone or in person, nor can we take checks, so all purchases must be made online. If you're ordering for more than 1 address, you have to enter in each address and place separate orders. So if you're a property owner with two properties, you must place 2 separate orders. Please do not place any orders for properties that you do not own unless you are assisting someone like a neighbor or a friend or something like that with their purchase. They must have their own account, so you'll need an email address from them. The trees offered will be $40 per tree or per tree unit. Like I mentioned, we have some duos and trios available. Those will also be $40. This is a subsidized cost, so we're really happy to be able to offer these low-cost trees to residents to help diversify our community forest. There'll also be watering bags and tree guards available. The watering bags are $20 a piece. That's the green bag there on the right-hand corner. And then the tree guards will be $3. There is no limit to how many tree guards or watering bags you can order through the sale. Some helpful tips to make your ordering process go smoothly. The online preview goes live on January 28th, so you can log into your Shopify account. You can create that account at that time if you don't already have one, and take a look at the trees ahead of time. We do recommend that you watch this entire preview so that you get an idea for some of those trees that will be offered. While you're looking at those trees, you might want to decide on your trees ahead of that February 7th date and pick a first, second, and third choice of those trees, just in case things sell out really quickly. I also like to point out that you might want to set a calendar reminder on your phone or somewhere else that would be handy for you to remind you that the tree sale is going to start at 8 a.m. on that day. And then if you have any questions, try to email or call ahead of time. On the 7th, it gets a little bit busy, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. But if you have any questions, especially if they're about tree-specific questions, try to get to those ahead of time. The tree pickup isn't going to happen until September, so we have a little bit of time to think about. So I do recommend saving the date for September 23rd and September 24th. That pickup event will happen at our Public Works facility at 11522 Minnetonka Boulevard. If you're familiar with our brush drop site or our recycling and organic site, it'll be the same place there. You're going to follow the signs and go and pick up your trees and be on your way. And we'll send all of this information out ahead of time too, so you have a map of the area, and so you'll be able to find your way to the trees easier that way. Any trees that are not picked up will be planted in parks. Unfortunately, we can't resell the trees. We get this question a lot where people want to purchase trees that aren't picked up, and we cannot do that. They will be planted in public spaces throughout Minnetonka. So why do we do this program? How does it help build our community forest? Well, just to give a little bit of history, we've been doing this program since 2007, and we've distributed over 16,000 trees, so 16,690 trees, and then we'll be adding another 950 trees this year in 2022. And we do this because we lose a lot of trees. So since 2004, we've lost over 18,000 elms due to Dutch elm disease. We've lost 1,180 oak trees to oak wilt, and now 1,700 ash due to emerald ash borer and preemptive removals. We only expect that number to increase quite exponentially. We're really trying to get ahead of emerald ash borer here, but we have a really high population of ash trees in the city, so we're really wanting to replant ahead of time. If you're concerned about any ash on your property, we do offer free tree inventories for any homeowners or businesses or homeowners associations, so please contact us. We can do an inventory of your property, and then from there give you any management suggestions that we might have. You might want to chemically treat your tree to protect it, and things of that nature. So while thinking about the trees that you might want on your property, you want to think about the site that you have in mind. Make sure that you're not only looking down at the site, but also up. What do you have there? Do you have any overhead utilities that might be in the way? What does your soil look like? Do you know if you have heavy clay soil or really sandy soil, something like that? How much sun do you get in your yard? Some trees are more sun-loving than others. Some prefer more shaded sites. Do you have a microclimate that might be a good environment for some of the more sensitive trees that we are offering? A microclimate might be somewhere like between a house and a garage that's protected from some harsh winter winds. Are you looking for energy savings? So do you want some shade for your home? We know that big shade trees provide a lot of environmental and financial benefits by shading our home and reducing our needs for air conditioning. And then, of course, aesthetics and personal preference. What do you want your yard to look like? Do you want flowering trees? Do you want a big shade tree? Are you looking for conifers? That's all going to be kind of specific to what you're looking for. When you're thinking about where you're planting, I just wanted to point out that you shouldn't be planting within 15 feet of the curb with a deciduous tree. This is just to maintain our roadways for safety for motorists, sight lines, and pedestrians. If you're planting a conifer, make sure that you're staying 20 feet back from the curb. The same thing, we don't want to have to come in later and have to prune up the tree just for sightline and visibility. If you have a corner property, at that corner, it's actually a 25 by 25 foot area that we don't want anything over 2.5 feet tall. So none of the trees or shrubs that we're offering this year would be suitable for a corner. And then also thinking about what kind of maintenance you want to put into your trees. Some of the trees that we're offering are more maintenance heavy than others. And so maybe you're not a novice gardener and you really want to take a go at some of these harder to train trees or harder to take care of trees. That would be something to think about. Or if you want a tree that's really just going to be able to do its thing without a lot of input, another thing to think in mind or keep in mind there. So some desirable attributes that people look for in trees. Is it flowering? Does it have fall color? Is there purple leaves? Are you looking for a fruit tree? Maybe some interesting bark is something that you want to look at, especially here in Minnesota, and we don't have a lot to look at in the wintertime. These are all desirable attributes that people look for. Some undesirable attributes. This tree here is a balled and burlap tree. We're not offering any of these, but that's really, really heavy. So you'll be planting your trees yourself. That definitely don't want to buy a big heavy tree if you can avoid it. But then other things, is it going to be a mess? Are you planting next to a sidewalk or somewhere where you don't want fruit or seeds or something to be falling there that you're going to constantly have to clean up? The cottonwoods that we love so much that have all the cotton that get in the air, this might not bother somebody, but it might bother somebody else who's allergic. Does the tree have thorns? All right, jumping into our different trees, we have different tree categories of what we're offering this year. We have shade trees, we have ornamental and shrub trees, we have fruit trees, and last but not least, we have some conifers. So the shade trees we're offering this year, we have a Triumph Elm Hybrid, a Northwood Red Maple, an Espresso Kentucky Coffee Tree, Prairie Stature Oak, a Harvest Gold Linden, and a Merrill Magnolia. So first, the Triumph Elm Hybrid. This is an Asiatic elm has really good Dutch elm disease resistance. This is a really fast-growing tree that's very, very adaptable to different soil conditions. So this is going to be a pretty easy tree for a novice person or somebody who doesn't want to put a lot of input in, except it is a pretty fast-growing tree, so you may need to do some structural pruning to get it to be the desired shape that you want. It has a really beautiful upright vase shape that's pretty classical of an elm tree. It does get small papery fruit, so they're called samaras. So if that's something that totally turns you off, this tree will get those eventually. It does have a really nice yellow gold fall color, as you can see in the upper right hand corner here. The squirrels really like this tree. Birds will nest in it. And this one will come in a number 10 gallon container. This one was introduced by the Morton Arboretum, and it was their second elm tree to ever be introduced by them. So it's kind of a tried and true Morton Arboretum introduction. Next we have the Northwood Red Maple. This is a true Minnesota native. This was actually a selection that the U of M had made from a tree in northern Minnesota, and they'd brought it into production to be offered in the nursery trade. Maples really have several seasons of interest. They get red flowers in the spring, which I think are really pretty. We don't think about maples as being flowering trees, but you can see in the upper right-hand corner, it gets these really interesting red flowers that you'll see in the spring that'll be visited by a lot of different pollinators. It's got a really nice, dense shade, so if you're looking to provide some nice shade to a patio or a yard or something, this would be a good tree for that. And then, of course, maples are really known for their beautiful red fall color, and this one won't disappoint. So it gets kind of a reddish-orange color in the fall that's really, really pretty. Red maples are also known as bog maples, so they can take a little bit of wetter soil. So if you have a wetland nearby or you have some wetter soil, this one might be a good choice for you. It does prefer slightly acidic, well-drained soil, so we don't want standing water by any means. And then slightly acidic, so if you have really alkaline soils, if you know this, this might not be a good choice. It gets something called chlorosis that will turn the leaves kind of yellow in the summertime. The Espresso Kentucky coffee tree. So this is a seedless variety of our Kentucky coffee tree. This is a really underutilized shade tree. It's a really tough tree, so if you're unsure of what your soil type is like, this would be a good tree to try because it's not real picky about where it grows. It also has kind of a tropical-like appearance, so if you see in the right-hand corner, it gets these, it's what's called bipinnately compound leaves. So it's really little tiny leaves that provide filtered shade. So if you want to grow grass or a garden underneath the tree, this would be a good choice for that. Also gets really beautiful, a golden yellow fall color. That's very, very attractive, and song migratory birds will like to nest in this tree. Just an interesting kind of factoid about this one is that early settlers used to use the beans inside the pods as a substitute for coffee, and that's why it gets its name. But this one will not get those bean pods, so you don't have to worry about the mess that those might create. Next, we have the Prairie Stature Oak Hybrid. This is a really cool oak because it doesn't get quite as giant as some of our native oaks that we see around here. It is a cross between a white and an English oak, so it has kind of some of the best qualities of both of those trees. White oaks get the really pretty fall color and interesting leaves. It's going to have that. The English oak tends to be a little bit smaller in nature, so that's where it gets its more compact look to it. It's going to be really pyramidal in form. So you can see it's got a very uniform shape. It also has a tendency to hang onto its leaves in the wintertime, which adds some winter interest to our otherwise bleak landscape in the wintertime. It does produce acorns. So if you are totally turned off by acorns, know that this tree does produce those, so you might not want to plant it. And it gets really beautiful red fall color. You're going to attract a lot of wildlife to your yard with any oak tree. Squirrels especially really love nesting and eating the acorns, but you're also going to get a lot of birds and beneficial insects visiting this tree. Oaks are considered, any oak, but this one too is considered a legacy or heritage tree because they tend to have really long life expectancies, and they're very hardy, different conditions. The Harvest Gold Linden. This is another pretty underutilized tree. This one's kind of hard to find in the nursery trade, so we're really excited to offer it here to Minnetonka residents this year. It's a cross between a Mongolian and a little leaf linden. It's also known as a compact shade tree, so it only gets to be about 40 feet tall and 30 feet wide. So if you have a smaller space but still want a shade tree, this is a good choice for that. It can take a little bit of shade. It prefers full sun, but if you have a little bit of shade too, it'll do okay there. What I really love about lindens is their spring flowers. So in May or June, it'll start blooming, kind of these creamy white flowers that are really, really fragrant and a very popular flower for pollinators. So a good food source for them. And what I found was interesting about this tree too is that fragrance is actually really, people really love it, and they make soaps and other beauty products out of it. Next is the Merrill Magnolia. If you're from the south, you're familiar with magnolias. Here in the north, we don't see them quite as often because there's not too many varieties that are hardy in our climate. Merrill Magnolia is one of them. So this is actually going to be a taller tree, so it gets to be about 40 feet tall by 30 feet wide. And magnolias are most known for their really beautiful, showy white flowers that pop open before even the leaves come out on most of the trees. So you get these star-shaped white fragrant flowers that cover the tree. Really, really beautiful, very ornamental, but also you're going to get some shade because it is a little bit bigger. This is a tree that might benefit from one of those microclimates. So they are sensitive to late frosts because they have those blossoms that come out so early. So if you have a microclimate, this would be a good tree to plant in that location. This one's considered a little bit higher maintenance than some of the trees that we're offering, just because it can be a little bit sensitive. So keeping that one in mind, you're going to have to do some regular watering on this one, making sure that it's happy and mulched and all of those things. One thing I found interesting about the magnolia is that it's actually pollinated by beetles, where a lot of the other trees are insects and butterflies and things like that. This one, because it flowers so early, is dependent on our beetles that come out early with the flowers. All right, next we're going to talk about our ornamental understory shrubs and trees. So first we have the Newport Plum tree. Next we're going to talk about the Thornless Cockspur Hawthorn. We have the Nannyberry Viburnum tree, our red twig Dogwood Wetland trio. This will be one of our trios. And then the black Chokeberry Woodland trio. So first, the Newport Plum. This is an Asiatic plum tree. It's a good crabapple alternative, so if you really like the look of a crabapple, this would be a good one to try. Crabapples are very common in the landscape. This one is not so much. It's also called a cherry plum because the plums are so small. They're about the size of a small cherry. They are edible. However, because they're so small, and I've heard that the seed is large, it's not a tree that you would want to plant for fruit to eat, but rather leave it for the birds and wildlife. It's kind of a moderate to slow grower, so it's a good kind of accent tree for a garden space or something like that. You do want to plant this one in full sun. The leaves are going to be purple all growing season, so that's an interesting feature about this tree, is that it's going to have that nice purple leaf color throughout the growing season. And one thing I found interesting about the purple leaf color was that scientists believe that the leaves have adapted to have purple in them as a natural sunscreen against the sun's harmful rays. So although it does contain chlorophyll, that purple is kind of covering it up to help as a sunscreen. Next is the Thornless Cockspur Hawthorn. This one is native to the US, but not to Minnesota, but it tends to do really, really well in our climate. This is a really well-adapted tree that can take different soil types and different water conditions. So a pretty good tree for a novice gardener. This one has flowers in the springtime that are actually pollinated by flies. Some people don't like the smell of these flowers, but they are beautiful to look at. It'll also get hawthorns, so some berry-looking fruit in the summertime that's enjoyed by a variety of wildlife. And in the fall, it gets really pretty orange leaves as well. This one's going to be in a number 7 container, so a little bit smaller than some of those shade trees that we're offering. And then another thing, some of these, so the Cockspur Hawthorn, this is a thornless variety, but the thorn variety gets its name because the thorns resemble the spur of a rooster. All right, the Nannyberry Viburnum tree. So Nannyberry Viburnum is a native shrub. It's also called Aronia. That's native to Minnesota. Now this one that we're offering has actually been trained as a single stem tree. So in the nursery trade, they prune it to be a single stem, and then it becomes a small tree that can fit in different spaces in your garden. It's a petite tree, so it only gets to be about 15 feet tall by 20 feet wide, tops, and grows at a pretty moderate rate. This one is actually one that can grow in full shade. So if you have a pretty shaded yard or wooded site, this would be a good one to plant there. It can also do well in full sun. I would say it probably thrives in a part sun to part shade kind of conditions, but it can grow anywhere pretty much. This one gets flowers in the spring, edible berries throughout the summertime that are enjoyed by birds and mammals and squirrels. And then in the fall, it'll also get kind of a reddish-orangish color. This one is also known as a sheepberry because apparently the fermenting fruit smells like wet wool. Next, we have the red twig Dogwood Wetland trio. So this is one of our trios. You'd actually get 3 shrubs for this offering. They'll be in number 5 containers, so that's the smallest container that we have this year. These are a native shrub that you see quite often in our wetland areas, lowlands, sometimes wooded edges as well. They can take full sun to part shade. And they are a multi-stem shrub, and they tend to naturalize an area, so they'll tend to sucker and things like that. If you don't want them to do that, you'll just have to keep up on pruning back some of those twigs. They have white berries that are enjoyed by wildlife. And then I think kind of the best feature of them is their bright red color that looks especially nice this time of year against the snow. Anything on a wetland edge, I think that these would do really, really well there. Humans have used their wood for many years to make baskets and weaving, and I see them probably more common than not in holiday arrangements now. So if that's something that you want to harvest for in the future for your future holiday arrangements, this would be a good one to try. Next we have the black chokeberry woodland trio. Perhaps you're doing some buckthorn removal on your property and you're looking for something to replant in its place. This is a really good choice for that. This is a native shrub. It's a flowering shrub that gets berries and really nice fall color. It does like a little bit of sun, so I wouldn't plant this one in full shade, but if you have a woodland opening or a woodland edge or something like that, that would do really well there. This one is also going to tend to naturalize, so it will root sucker and spread kind of into thickets. It's pretty deer resistant, so it actually can take a little bit of browsing from deer because it's aggressive. And keeping that in mind, when it's young, you're still going to want to try to protect it. We have pretty heavy deer pressure here in the city of Minnetonka, so if you are concerned about that, make sure that you're caging it when it's young, but however, when it gets established, it's pretty deer resistant. Chokeberries are edible by humans, although, as the name implies, they're very tart. They have a really high tannin rate. But they do have a really also high antioxidant rating. They're also known as aronia, and people do eat them and make syrups and jams and jellies out of them as a good thing to do. So the fruit trees that we'll be offering this year are the plum duo. We have a Toka and a superior plum tree for that duo. Next we have the apple duo, which is the Snowsweet and Cortland. The plum duo these are both kind of semi-dwarf varieties, so 15 by 15 feet is what they'll get to be at maturity. All of the fruit trees that we are offering prefer full sun, so I wouldn't recommend these in any shaded environment. You just won't get very many fruit, and it won't flower as well, so make sure that you find a full sun site for these trees. The plum trees tend to be a little bit lower maintenance than some of the other fruit trees. So if you've never grown a fruit tree before and really want to, start your home orchard, this would be a good place to start. They get white flowers in the spring, and then they both get reddish, kind of purpley fruit that's smaller than a plum that you would buy from a store, but very sweet. You can eat it right off the tree, or otherwise you can preserve it in a jam or make pies or something like that. They prefer moist to average and slightly acidic soil. Songbirds will like nesting in these. Pollinators will like visiting the flower in the spring. So these will be coming in number 5 containers, and you'll get one of each of these. The Toka plum is often called the bubblegum plum because the fruit has the essence of a bubblegum. I've tried Toka plums and I can't attest to that, but I would like to try them again since reading that. I think that's very interesting. Next is our apple duo, a Snowsweet and a Cortland apple. And we offer these duos because these trees are dependent on each other for pollination. So you need 2 fruit trees of different species in order to cross-pollinate and create fruit. So make sure that you're planting these within 50 feet of each other. These are also semi-dwarf varieties, so they're 15 by 15, also prefer full sun, slow to moderate growers. You get the beautiful white apple blossoms in the spring, and then their fruit's going to ripen at different times. So the Snowsweet ripens in about October. The Cortland's going to be a little bit earlier than that, September to October. One thing I found interesting about this one is that the Cortland has been around for a really long time. So this one was introduced in the nursery trade in 1915. In contrast, the Snowsweet's a fairly new variety that was introduced in 2006. The other thing to keep in mind about apples is they tend to be a pretty high maintenance tree. So if you've never grown fruit trees before, apples might not be the best place to start. They can need some extra fertilizing. They definitely need regular watering. They need regular pruning in order to keep the fruit production up. So we do want to point that out, that apple trees tend to be a higher maintenance tree. Also, with both fruit tree varieties that we're offering, you want to provide deer protection for these. These tend to be deer magnets. They really like to go after the bark and the branches and the fruit and everything, so you definitely want to cage these, especially when they're young. And then lastly about the fruit trees too is they tend to sell out fastest than any of our other trees that we're offering. So if you really have your heart set on getting a fruit tree duo, make sure that you're ordering early to make sure that you get one of those varieties. Last but not least are our conifers. We are offering the Norway spruce and a white pine. So first, the Norway spruce. This is a non-native spruce. It's from Europe. But it's been around in the United States for quite some time. Really beautiful, low maintenance evergreen tree. Has that nice pure metal form that once it gets mature will have kind of these pendulous drooping branches. There'll be some larger pine cone kind of looking fruit on it. And it'll be green throughout the year. Evergreens are really great for providing screens. So you can plant them as screens for a neighboring property and then also as a windbreak. So we get really kind of cold northwest winds, or winds that come from the northwest here in Minnesota. So planting one of these trees on the northwest side of your property could help break up some of those winter winds. Evergreens are also really important nesting sites for birds, places for them to hide from predators when there's no other leaves on the trees in the wintertime. Lastly, we have our white pine tree. This is a native Minnesota tree. It can grow to be about 60 feet tall in our urban environments to about 30 feet wide. When you get these trees, they have kind of that classic Christmas tree shape, so they're very full and pure metal. As they grow older, they become more irregular and interesting. And I kind of have these, this top left picture here, kind of these irregular kind of branching. They have softer bright green needles that are really, really attractive. These trees do prefer acidic soil, so they can tolerate some alkaline soil, but they also get some chlorosis if it's too alkaline. And given the right conditions, the white pine can be a very old tree. It can be well over 250 years old and more than 100 feet tall. So we see some of these big giants in the northern forests of Minnesota. And given the right conditions, I believe in Minnetonka you could grow a tree to be well over 250 years old here too. That's it for our tree sale. If you have any questions, please email us at the forestry email, forestry@minnetonkamn.gov, or give us a call. Thank you for listening.